Hello, true duelists. YGO Strats here, foregoing the mouse today because I've foregone a script. Yep, that's right. I gave up on writing the script for this video because I rewrote it like 98 times and I'm just so sick and tired of rewriting and refocusing the same stupid jokes. And at this point, I've forgotten like 19 of them. So what I've decided to do instead is I just grabbed my Noble Knight deck, my Noble Knight deck box I've had for a good long while. And now I've just spaced out all the good cards, and I'll go over them and the ones that I also remember, and I'll talk about them in that regard off the cuff, because fuck it, it's a Noble Knight video. If you want the exact truth to why I'm making Noble Knights the next video, I was going through my history on TCG Player and my purchases, which has recorded all of the money I've wasted all the way back to 2013, which one of the first purchases was for 2 copies of Madrao, because I pulled one from a box of Cosmo Blazer and I thought, I gotta play Noble Knight then. And I bought 2 of this thing for about 40 bucks a pop each. And let me tell you, at no point in the history of this universe has a single Noble Knight card really been worthy of being valued at 40 bucks. Maybe Isolde was. Maybe Isolde was at one point a card worthy of the $40 slot, but I think I paid 10 for mine, and even in Goki format, probably not a $40 card. I don't know. The point of today's story is that I'm just going to talk about these fucking things because I've toyed with them over the past decade or so, and I paid way too much money for them over the past decade or so I may as well get something out of it in the form of a fucking video. So that's what we're going to do, because they're really neat aesthetically. Like Noble Knights, you know, Arthurian legend. We got King Arthur. We got Merlin. We got some French dudes. I'm looking at Iviani. Probably not how you say that card's name. They looked so neat and they caught my eye really, really early on. And actually, while they were debuting, they really reminded me of Spellbook, because you have to understand, I didn't pay attention to the meta at the time these decks were actually coming out. My friends were the tryhards. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna buy cards too. Let's have fun today, boys. And then Adam bought Full Power Inzektor, and I've never forgiven him since. But in between all of that, Noble Knight was getting pieced out a couple cards at a time in a set, and often in the high rarity slot, which is what Spellbook had done. And Spellbook had been one half of the Spellbook ruler format, and you didn't have to pay attention to the meta to know that that was an insanely broken format and those cards were nuts. So I was like, yo, what if this is going to be like the next Spellbook, but instead of spellcasters, it's going to be warriors? I'll be so cool. I'll buy all the cards now, and then Madrao for 40 will end up being like 100 later on. And suffice it to say, past me is one of the dumbest beings that ever existed. But they've held my passion since, you know, King Arthur. I'm a white boy. You see that? The only Yugi tuber that glows on that level is MBT. He and I both. And I don't have to guess whether or not he liked Monty Python and the Holy Grail at some point in his life, because no one as white as us could ever have not been interested in it at some point. So a deck that allowed me to look at cool knights and also crack Monty Python jokes seemed like a sure fit for my 18-year-old scrawny ass at the time. And if you think that's irrelevant, your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries, or some other Monty Python quote. But you know what, let's just jump into it here, because I don't know what the fuck this deck is supposed to be doing. Like, I do, but I don't. There's a number of the cards that are effect monsters everywhere except for when you put them on the field. And then once they're summoned on the field, they're just vanillas. They have no effect. And the way you need to get the effect is to equip them with one of your Noble Arms equip spells, of which there's a number of varying degrees of quality. And, you know, Madrao and Boars, and I think one other one that I'm forgetting, are level 4 light vanillas, but when you equip them, they become level 5 dark with effects. So you need to open the two pieces. You need the monster, you need the equip. You can't independently, they do shit all. They did give us a card that I have always called Gawain, Noble Knight Gawain, who is a free special summon from hand if you control a level 4 light vanilla, or if you control a light normal monster. The beauty of reading your cards. To kind of cheat out some other Xyz, but by like what the deck wants to do, you don't want to have to be doing Gawain all the time. You want to open the equip spells. And so Madrow lets you summon one from the deck, and Boars will search out equip spells, add one to your hand, and Foolish 2, you reveal 3, and then 1 is randomly selected to go to your hand. And then they have a few other cute effects going on. Driston popped a card when you equipped him with something, and he made it so that your opponent could not target monsters with 1800 or less attack except for this card with attacks or card effects. So 2 Dristons was like the world's cheesiest dupe lock, and that was entertaining to me once upon a time. And then you have all these equip spells from the original wave of support. You had Noble Arms of Destiny, which once per turn made it indestructible by battle or card effect, and that was neat. And then Aphrodurture, or I'm not Welsh, I'm not saying that run. So that one, minus 500 attack to pop or spell a trap. So they had a bit of native MST. And Caliburn gained life points because they were running out of effects, I guess. And Excaliburn made it untargetable and could be banished to like trade Xyz to rank up the rank 4 into the rank 5, or the 5 into the 4, depending if you wanted to like cheat stuff out. And then they also gave the deck shitty Acts of Despair and Gallatin, because I guess keeping the 1000 attack boost was too much. If you opened the tits, as I remembered, you had one monster that was indestructible, untargetable, and had like 4000 attack. And that might sound kind of nutty, but I didn't feel all that nutty, I'm not gonna lie to you. It never felt like it was that unsurmountable of a board when the entire backbone of your strategy is ruined by like MST. And granted, a lot of the Noble Arms equips could re-equip them once per turn if they were destroyed, but the one that saved you from targeting does not do that, and Castel is a card. So like, oh no, hope I don't have MST into Castel. I know that's essentially draw the out, but I don't know, they always had the fucking out. And that was like a big issue in general, just kind of like sidelining for a moment in the earliest waves of support, was that you needed an equip spell and a monster to do anything. And if you didn't open the 2, you were playing with nothing. It was useless, it was garbage. And so when we got support in the worst ever rarity that Konami ever printed, this dog shit platinum rare that I hate so much, I'm actually going out of my way to not use when I put cards here in this video. We got the Noble Arms Knight box dick-sucking quest, or whatever the hell it was Konami called it at the time. And it was going to be the next thing to fix the Noble Knights. It was going to give us 3 cards that would really elevate the deck, because Konami was desperate for this thing to be good, or they wanted people to play it. And they gave us a fucking Lone Fire Blossom. They gave us a dude with a crossbow who could like Foolish Burial, an equip spell. And then they gave us a Monster Reborn that required you to have a Noble Knight and a Noble Arms in the graveyard. And if you aren't following what I'm saying here, is they did not do anything to resolve the problem that this deck is dog shit if you do not open an equip and a monster. That it's an insurmountable flaw the deck has forever real, to the point that when they made Infernoble, they just said, fuck that whole thing, we'll make the deck good instead. And I'm only talking about these OG boys and girls because they're the ones that I have. And I'm just kind of throwing away the cards once I've spoken about them. This is incredibly impromptu. Maybe should have wrote a fucking script. We ended up getting Gwenevere, which is Guinevere, but not, which was like a monster that was an equip spell, and it gave an effect depending on whether or not the monster it was equipped to was light or dark. But once you equipped it to any of the ones that changed their attributes, they became dark more often than not. So that's cool, I guess. Just sure. They did get a handful of good cards in the later stages. You know, we got the Glory of the Noble Knights, which was just a quick play to equip a Noble Knight with an equip from deck. So that at least did something to address the critical flaw of it, of the deck broadly, but even that has been made irrelevant more or less by the actual good card, Heritage of the Chalice, which is a Rhoda for either a Noble Knight or a Noble Arms, which the deck needed from jump. If you put that card back in 2013, the deck's level does not elevate enough to be exceptional. It's just not as, underwhelming as it is. Now, other old ones that we got that I haven't mentioned, Brothers was cool for swarming and a bit of reshuffling and cycling, and it's 3 dudes, and you could make a fucking Rick and Morty joke about 3 brothers if this were actually still like 2015 and that show didn't just become about reeing in a McDonald's in the broader social conscious, but c'est la vie, it is what it is. And I look at all these other cards we hear. We got Pelennor Rigby, which is a scrap dragon. This entirely replaces Dristan, which is cool, but also not cool because I liked Dristan for some reason. He had my favorite art. He was just playing the lyre. Fucking straight fire on the lyre. That's what we said back in the day. Custard here was neat. He made it so that you could summon him for free if you have a Noble Arms, and then whatever Noble Knight, Xyz, Synchro, or Link, or whatever you went into using him as a material, would then give you an extra normal summon for some more swarming potential, because another problem with this deck was that all it did was sit on one Xyz monster, and that's not a tremendous amount in pretty much any format. Maybe against Boojins, you could give the Battle of the Helmets, or whatever we would have referred to it as. That was cool. And then the last 2 not extra deck cards I've got in front of me here are IVN, the lion guy who summons out a token, which is pretty groovy for making it easier to get into Isolde. And then the actual good card for like Noble Knights, it's a trap card that excavates up to the number of equips you've got on your field, and then you can have 1 card from those excavated, put the rest on the bottom. It's cute. It can search out anything that's revealed. It's got that for hire Raphael effect going on. It's pretty kino, if you know what I mean. And then you can banish it to summon a Noble Knight with a different name from deck than what you already control is in your grave. So it kind of gets out whatever it is you're missing, which is cool. And that was the main deck, really. I don't remember the level 5s. I remember the one level 5 could banish 2 to summon itself from hand or graveyard, I believe. And then whatever you used to summon it would become unable to be negated. So like if you used it as Xyz material, the Xyz summoned monster's summon could not be negated. They can't respond to it with a Solemn, which is cute, but not exceptional. I remember Lancelot was in the deck, and Lancelot was like the cool one when I was a kid. And then I read Lancelot's card, and I was like, wow. No, I get it. They took the cool one and made it bad. And that's actually an allegory for the entire deck, as it turns out, because Lancelot's main effect is to tribute a Noble Knight to add a Noble Arms, which is like, bro, it's a level 5. Why not just make it add a Noble Arm on summon? Why can't you make it like moderately playable? And then they gave it a synchro that was the same level as normal Lancelot, and also worse because its effect was just a Warrock search effect in 2013, and also it had to send to the graveyard specifically. So when Darklaw came out and all my friends bought the hero deck, my Noble Knight deck got shit on again. This deck has just been a series of abuse on my end, which is such a shame, because it's like, I just don't know. Their Xyz monsters were really the bread and butter, because Lancelot Synchro was pretty underwhelming. So you had the rank 4, which was like Feather Duster, and the rank 5, which was a target and pop for monster specifically. So between the 2 of them, they could clear spell and trap or monsters, but each of them equipped 3 Noble Arms from the grave onto themselves when they were summoned, so they would always have the buffs that you wanted, and then that was about it. They were pretty low attack, presumably because they want you to buff them up with the equips, but Galatane loses 200 attack during each standby phase, or each of your standbys, so the monster's perpetually getting weaker, which is just, I suppose, a metaphor for Noble Knights over the course of time, just perpetually getting weaker. We did get this new rank 4, which I'm going to read again for the first time in since I think this came out, which was, I think, 4 years ago. which lets you detach any number of materials, target that many cards your opponent controls, and bounce them, which is decent. And he needs 2 or more Noble Knights, so it's up to 5 bounces if you are playing an insane match where you got 5 Noble Knights on field and overlaid them. But that's cute. And then it also cannot be, or no, if it is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave, you can summon a Noble Knight Xyz from your extra deck, accept a copy of itself, and then attach this card to it as a material. So he trades. And lore-wise, this motherfucker was after Arthur. He's the king after Arthur, I don't know, died, or I believe if you follow true Arthurian legend, what happened was Lancelot got a Glock and shot him, which I may be misremembering somewhat, but who knows? Lancelot betrayed him, that's all I know. And then lastly is Isolde, which is a whole other thing for itself. But it is actually a very good card in Noble Knights, and the equip, it is the only deck beyond Infernoble where it's not just garnets being played. The equips have a native purpose in the deck. So that is the entirety of the archetype, and like I said, it's just so aggravating that you needed an equip and a monster to do anything, and that's always been such a deterrent. And if they MST it like immediately, sure, most of them will re-equip, but like the bread and butter combo, you can't do it because the re-equip only happens once per turn for each of those noble arms. And so if you summon a Drow and equip it with Destiny, and then they flip MST and you re-equip the Destiny to it to get the effect, when you do the boars, you can't get into the 5 because you need both of them to be equipped to be able to make the 5. And generally speaking, the 5 is better than the 4 because the 5 clears monsters and has more attack. But that was always mine. I mean, I was never a truly enlightened Noble Knight player. I've just always wanted to be a truly enlightened Noble Knight player, as it were. I think if I had to sum up this deck most aptly, or the attitude that I've seen this deck get most aptly, was that in 2014, while I was playing this deck against my buddies, they kept talking about how they would refuse to read the cards. They had way too many words on them, they're not reading it. They would just say, you know what, you explain what's going on and I'll interrupt when I want to. The epitome of every Yu-Gi-Oh player, as it were. But while doing that, they realized that all the noble arms state they can only equip to a warrior or like a noble knight, but a lot of them specify warrior. So it became the running theme to side DNA surgery and call fish to make all the noble knights fish, so I couldn't do my plays. And that was it. It was your men are fish, and you had to deal with it. And as a rebuttal, I played Mermail, which does have some fish in it and isn't, you know, noble knights. And noble knights here is a synonym for egregiously underwhelming. That being said, the deck has always been pretty damn fun, and like the one boss, especially in like a 2014 format, it's cute. A big 4K Artagoras, King Arthur, chilling with all those swords, can feel pretty groovy when you get to have your play and go off. I just remember being so mad because the main person that would duel me was my friend playing Madolche, and everyone else had some amount of struggle dealing with a fully equipped Artagoras with Destiny and Excalibur, and then they can't target it or destroy it. It's a tower's light of sorts, except for fucking Madolche, because Tiara Masu doesn't target. And that's what I had to deal with. And everyone was like, wow, man, Noble Knights are so bad. Why are you even playing that? You just lose to Tiara Masu. And it's like, Tiara Masu is a good boss monster today. Today in 2022, Tiara Masu's non-targeted spin is a very solid effect and a very worthy boss monster. That was an insanely ahead of its time card, and I hate that I was bullied for not being, you know, equipped to deal with it. Get it? Because they play equip spells. It's a joke. It's a comedy moment. It's a divine moment of God laughing at me for having the audacity to spend $80 on 2 cards to lose to a fucking cupcake. I was affected by it. I was mildly annoyed. I had a pinch of salt when it came to Tiara Masu. And as a matter of fact, my buddy has since retired and he just left all his cards at my place. And he was like, yeah, when I come down, maybe we can hang out and duel, and I'll just leave my cards at your place since I only duel with you guys. And I was like, sounds good, man, let's do it. And then he was like, by the way, I'm getting married and I'm never coming home again and we're never dueling again. And I was like, damn, you got me. So now I have access to, I guess, that same fucking Inzektor deck that traumatized me for years, and his Dragunity, and his Madolche. So maybe next couple of weeks I'll do what I call on this channel the Adam Variety Hour, wherein I go over all of Adam's decks from the point of view of someone who did not play the decks, but only against them. And I'll just tell you what I've decided is good from my strained knowledge of matchups from 6 years ago. That's very relevant for today's Sprite-filled meta. When Tearlament summons Winda on turn 0, you'll be like, damn, what did YGO Strats think of Dragunity Legionnaire coupled with the, oh, what was it? The little red one. It was the 2 for pop. You wanted to put it on screen. That guy, Legionnaire, and that guy. I know what I'm talking about. Clearly, my knowledge on these decks is as deep and thoughtful as this video has been long and drawn out. And maybe that's what I'll do. And I guess, I don't know, fuck it. This is a deck list that I'm gonna throw on screen that exists. You could play it. I might want to toy with this deck again because I'm now holding the cards and I'm realizing I paid for a playset of Heritage of Chalice here, but it's unsleeved, which means I never even put it in the fucking deck. I just bought the card. So that seems to be my main motivator for what deck I play these days. A little bit of Paleo Frog and a little bit of, oh shit, I spent money on that. I should justify that purchase. And that's the Yu-Gi-Oh way. And so what is this video called? Should you play Noble Knight? What were Noble Knights? Who knows? We'll find out. The point of the story is big thanks from McSpanks. This video tanks. I need a drink. I don't know. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you like the off-the-cuff shit, or if a very valid comment, if this was too much, is just stick to the scripts. If you say stick to the scripts, this video will be my practice. And until then, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to get a beverage.